Quiz. What was the least realistic scene in Top Gun 2? Was it Tom Cruise flying a prototype jet at Mark 10? No. Was it a lady pilot flying an F-18? No, and don't be sexist. Was it everyone surviving a certain suicide mission so complicated that not even the writers understood exactly what was going on? Not even close. It was this. Did they really expect us to believe that someone that's run a bar for years would pull a pint that looks like that? Look at the state of it. You want to ask for a top-up, mate. Okay, that's enough messing about. Let's take a look at Top Gun 2 and find out whether it's actually overrated, right after my short and snazzy intro.
Big days, big reviews. Big days, big reviews.
Now, I'm sure all of you have seen Top Gun. It's a certified classic. I mean, it had everything. High-octane thrills and spills, a steamy-side love story, the tragic death of a best friend, enemies becoming friends, and of course plenty of homoerotic beach volleyball. And this was all set to a banging soundtrack and gorgeous visuals with almost no special effects. It's safe to say I watched it many times as a lad. So obviously I was more than a little excited when me and Mrs. Big Dave finally got around to watching the sequel, Topgun2 Maverick. So, spoiler warning for the content ahead. Set 30 years after Top Gun, and once again following the exploits of Pete Maverick Mitchell, who is now a test pilot on some super secret, super speedy jet project called Dark Star. Somehow, our hero, after all these years, is still only a captain. We learn this is due to repeated insubordination charges. However, it's more than likely that Maverick's been doing this deliberately in order to stay as a captain and therefore get to fly all the time. Now, Project Dark Star is getting close to hitting its goal of achieving the first Mark 10 flight. However, there's a problem. Bean Counting Admiral Ed Harris wants to pull Dark Star's funding and use it instead on his unmanned drone project. Replacing humans with robots. I detect our first theme in the movie. Hearing that Admiral Ed is on his way to shut down the show, Maverick takes the prototype plane out on a test flight where he's meant to be attempting Mark 9, but instead says, "Bollocks to it, I'm going for Mark 10, baby." Despite huge personal risk, Maverick pushes the plane harder and harder until whoosh, Mark 10, making him the fastest human alive. But Maverick wouldn't be Maverick if he didn't push the envelope, and he can't resist that here, pushing the plane even harder until the inevitable happens and he has to eject. As far as opening scenes go, I bloody love this one. There's a nice amount of tension, but more importantly, you get bucket loads of beautiful shots of the plane at sunset, all backed by a fantastic soundtrack. The juxtaposition between the insane speed Maverick is travelling and the calm, chilled out music and stunning external shots really works wonderfully. It's viewing bliss. Oh, and it ends on a not half bad joke as well. Moving on, so yet again old Maverick's in trouble with the top brass, but fortunately for him, he has a very close friend in a very high place, namely Iceman Tom Kazansky, played by Val Kilmer in both films, who's made it to Admiral. After some string pulling on Iceman's part, Maverick is sent back to Top Gun, the elite naval fighting academy where the best of the best of the best pilots go to become even besterer. So here's where we meet the only real elephant in the room for the film, the mission. Our boy Maverick may not have moved on in 30 years, but unfortunately for him, the world has. With technology such as missiles and drones being way more advanced, trying to come up with a mission that requires a bombing run by F-18s and the possibility of dogfighting is pretty bloody difficult. The writers give it a good go here, with a plot not too dissimilar to Luke's attack run on the Death Star. Basically, there's a uranium enrichment plant in the middle of some dodgy country that America's taken a disliking to. We don't know why exactly, but it's probably due to said country not putting enough American politicians' kids on the boards of their major energy companies. Anyways, the enrichment plant is in an old volcano at the end of a narrow mountain pass, and it's got all the radar and air protection you could ever want. The only feasible option, according to the film, is to fly F-18s through the narrow valley, up over the rim of the volcano, directly into the target site. Oh, and then the pilots need to pull a mad climb to get out of the volcano, where they will probably meet enemy 5th generation fighter planes. Yeah, it's a hot mess of a plan, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? They've come up with a plot that means we get high-octane F-18 action for the next 90 minutes. That's got to be worth something, right? So Maverick's asked to train a crop of former Top Gun grads for the task. Now, whilst this is your textbook suicide mission, Maverick doesn't seem to see it that way. He devises a plan to give the pilots the best chance to achieve the objectives and come back alive. The plan is basically to fly as fast as possible through the mountain pass so they can complete the bombing run before the enemy fighters can react. The only issue is, can any of these pilots do it? And on that note, who are the pilots in question? Well, there's an eclectic mix of enthusiastic youngsters, and in a change from the first film, we have our first female pilot, call sign Phoenix, played by Monica Barbaro. I love how the film handles her character. No man-hating, no pandering, just a pilot that happens to be a lady. Honestly, why can't more films do this? Now, I do feel like the film missed a trick here by not giving the young pilots some comedy millennial call signs. We do get one, call sign fanboy, but surely they could have squeezed in a Lieutenant TikTok or a call sign selfie. Maybe next time. One of the other potential mission candidates is none other than the son of Maverick's former best friend, Goose, who I'm sure we all remember met his end in Top Gun 1 like this. Heartbreaking stuff. Goose's son, call sign Rooster, played by Miles Teller, an actor I've always enjoyed watching, isn't best pleased to see Maverick. As it turns out, Maverick actively delayed Rooster's naval career. Rooster doesn't know why Maverick did this, but we do. He did it as he had promised Rooster's mum just before she died that he'd prevent Rooster from becoming a pilot. So thinking about it, Maverick has really ballsed up the situation, failing to stop Rooster becoming a pilot and alienating the young man in the process. Anyways, you all knew it was coming. That's right, it's the dogfighting training scene between Maverick and the younger pilots. As expected, Maverick wipes the floor with a lot of them, all to the sound of the Who's Won't Be Fooled Again. Lovely stuff indeed. Oi, Big Dave, I hear you cry. Where's the love interest? Fear not, Jennifer Connelly has that covered by playing Maverick's former girlfriend, Penelope Penny Benjamin. Now, if I counted on the fingers of one hand how many of Jennifer's films I've enjoyed, I'd still have 2 fingers spare. That being said, I thought she did alright here. Her role as Penny certainly wasn't too taxing, but she did well with what she was given, the pipe-pulling fiasco aside. Maverick and Penny go on a few dates, including on Penny's boat with the biggest damn steering wheel you've ever seen. But the situation is complicated by Penny's daughter Amelia, who is still hostile towards Maverick due to him previously ditching Penny, and that's fair enough. But in all honesty, the love interest side plot really isn't developed too much further in the film, as it knows where its strengths lie, and that's elsewhere. But before we do go back to the action, there's a quick cameo for Val Kilmer. Maverick meets up with his old pal Iceman, played by Kilmer, and unfortunately, Iceman has terminal cancer. Maverick wants to discuss his doubts about the mission, and in particular with sending Rooster on it. Iceman tells Maverick that it's time to let go, in what is a really moving scene for a number of reasons. Kilmer is clearly struggling with his health in real life, but still manages to deliver a poignant performance. I'm a big fan of his, so let's wish him all the best in his recovery. Iceman sadly passes shortly after, and with his protection gone, the Top Gun brass remove Maverick from the training program, in effect returning the mission to a one-way suicide trip that Maverick had feared from the start. But wait, Maverick has other plans as he hops into his F-18 to attempt the simulation run that all the recruits have failed to date. Now, I don't do this often, but this scene is a Big Dave certified ball tingler. Both the original Top Gun and this sequel used real stunts as much as possible, and it pays off here. The strain on Cruise's face as his jet speeds through the canyon only feet from the ground looks so authentic, because it is authentic. That's real G-force he's experienced, baby, and my god does it look good. This is true for all the cast, who, credit to them, also did the same thing, getting up there in real F-18s and suffering real G-force. At this point, you have to also think, how good are the real pilots doing the actual flying? My guess, bloody good. And so the final mission arrives, and it's what you would expect. High-octane, life-or-death piloting, air-to-air missiles, guns blazing, and of course, despite the adversity, a successful outcome. Oh, and no casualties for the good guys. If I'm being honest, I found it the least satisfying part of the film. So much happens in such a short period that it feels a little bit on the rush side to me, and there are parts of it that are just a little bit too hard to believe, but it does deliver on the thrills and the fun, and you get to see an F-14 Tomcat again, so it's pretty hard to complain. So, is Top Gun 2 Maverick overrated? Well, to avoid accusations of being a clickbaiter, you have to understand that at the time of writing this script, Top Gun 2 sits at an amazing 96% critical and 99% audience approval. That's certified classic status in anyone's book, and so my expectations were higher than Johnny Depp in his private jet. So with this in mind, I would argue that yeah, it is overrated, but only a little. You could argue the writers played it safe by copying the plot of the first movie almost step for step. The volleyballs replaced with beach football. The Iceman versus Maverick dynamic is replicated between Hangman and Rooster. Then there's the underdeveloped love interest side plot. We even see jets taken off to Kenny Logan's Highway to the Danger Zone. Still a banger, by the way. You could argue that if it's not broke, then don't fix it, which is something I say to my apprentice all the time, though he still usually breaks it anyway, the Muppet. But these are minor gripes, and you could even argue that the film being a little overrated is actually a good thing. Could the high ratings in part be the outcome of a relieved audience finally getting a film that, instead of shoving the writers' politics down their throat, instead focuses on a much simpler message, and that message is, I'm here to entertain you? I like to think so anyways. So for that reason alone, I don't begrudge this film the plaudits it's received. Let's hope it opens the door for more films like this in the future, where the focus is on great storytelling, interesting themes, and just being the best entertainment it can be. God knows we could all use that right now. Bloody hell, you've made it to the end of the show. Well done you. Now, if you could be a diamond and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, that will make sure we can keep in touch in future. Please also drop a like on the video and maybe even comment below. A bit of banter is always welcome. I'd like to wish you all the best. Until next time.